Now, if you think you haven't seen an all-new Audi model launch in a very long time, you're not alone. There hasn't been one in quite a while, but that's all about to change because very soon there will be a slew of new Audis launching in quick succession, and it's all going to start with this, the brand new A6, and we're here to drive it for you today. What do you think of the new A6? And would you have it instead of a 5 Series, E-Class, XF or S90? Let us know in the comments, and as always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to never miss another upload. The first thing to get out of the way is that the A6 for India is the standard wheelbase version. Audi won't do a long wheelbase version for India as Mercedes did with the E-Class, nor does it have another more spacious model to fill the gap between it and the upcoming A8 like BMW's 6 Series GT. The idea is to offer one balanced car that suits both the driver and the driven. Size-wise, it's grown but only slightly. 7mm longer, 12mm wider and 2mm taller with a 12mm longer wheelbase. The elegant silhouette has stayed virtually identical too, and that's a good thing, but then the styling has evolved. Softer, smoother design elements are replaced by sharper, squarer, more in-your-face details. And if you thought the new BMW grills were big, you should get a load of Audi's latest single-frame offering. It's wider than ever and all chrome, with more of the shiny stuff down in the bumper. The full LED headlamps are a lot more angular now and feature a new DRL signature. Round the back, the tail lamps are larger, featuring cool, intricate LED detailing, and are joined by a thin chrome strip. There's more chrome in the bumper, including what looks like a pair of dual exhaust tips but are actually just a design element. There are many character lines on the bonnet, while the shoulder line has now been split in two to highlight the front and rear wheel arches, which is a nod to the Quattro rally car of the 1980s. An interesting element is the wheels and tires. This new Gen A6 supports up to 22-inch wheels, so it has very big wheel arches. So, while this car uses 18-inch wheels just like the old A6, the tires it uses are narrower and have a much taller profile, being of 225/55 R18 size. This means they fill out the arches better, and as we'll see later, this does have a bearing on the car's ride comfort. Audi cabins have always been superbly finished, with an understated elegance to their design. The new one remains very well appointed, but understated it certainly is not. The dashboard is full of protruding layers with brushed aluminium, artificial leather, piano black trim and some very nice looking open pore wood. Many rivals offer this level of quality these days, but the A6's design really drives that premium point home. The new steering wheel looks very futuristic, and behind it sits the latest version of the virtual cockpit digital dials. There's a wireless phone charger under the central armrest, and the Bang & Olufsen hi-fi audio system sounds exquisite. The A6 is the first Audi to get the brand's dual touchscreen MMI infotainment system in India. The graphics are good looking, silky smooth and logically laid out, and it packs in a lot of functions including Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. But as popular as touchscreens are today, we wish Audi had kept in some form of physical control as a redundancy. It would have made for easier use on the move. There's a haptic click that you hear and feel when you use the screen, but that only means you have to press the screen harder to make it work. Though you don't get 360-degree cameras, you do get the now popular hands-free parking assist feature. There's also lane keep assist, 4-zone climate control and a long list of other features. Now let me just tell you right off the bat that you won't find as much space as, say, a long wheelbase E-Class or a 6 Series GT in the back of this A6, but compared to conventional wheelbase rivals like a 5 Series or a Jaguar XF, it's really rather plentiful, and I don't think anybody could complain about the legroom or headroom on offer. Now, I should tell you that this seat is best for two, largely because of that huge center tunnel and because the middle seat is rather narrow, but for those two people it will be very comfortable. The contours of this seat are really nice. It's very supportive even for your thighs, although it is placed a little bit upright. A special mention has to be made of the boot. Though its 530 litres is on par with the class on paper, the actual space on offer seems like far more than that. It helps that, unlike many rivals, the A6 was designed to house a space-saver spare tyre from the word go, so it doesn't eat into the luggage area at all. The Audi A6 will get a 4-cylinder petrol engine at launch, and the good news is they haven't skimped on it this time. It produces a solid 245 horsepower and 370 Newton meters of torque. But before we get into the performance, what strikes you first is just how refined this engine is. Whether at idle or at cruising speeds, it is barely audible. In fact, what that does is make you more aware of the road noise that comes up into the cabin, and you can hear a bit of that, especially on a coarse road surface. It's only when you ring the engine past around 4,000 RPM that you'll start to hear a bit of buzz from under the bonnet. The 7-speed dual-clutch auto is smoother than usual under light loads, and there's no sign of that slight shunt you'd sometimes get with older dual-clutch gearboxes. Ease onto the throttle and the A6 45 TFSI will reward you with a smooth yet brisk power build-up, which is perfect for most everyday driving situations this car will likely find itself in. The gearbox isn't the quickest to react to driver inputs, and overall the powertrain feels more relaxed than alert. To get a feel for the engine's performance, let me just dial it up into dynamic mode on the drive select. And yeah, it immediately feels a little bit more urgent. That said, the differences between modes aren't as stark as you'll find in some rival cars, and while switching between them alters the steering, engine and gearbox behavior, it no longer affects the ride. But there's one very important thing to note this time around. While air suspension was pretty much a USP of the previous A6, this car no longer gets it. And that's just as well, because it's not really expected in this class and it's very, very expensive. What you might miss is the ability to raise the ride height for a rough patch of road, and there are no adaptive dampers either, but that's okay because the new A6 rides rather well. So how does the A6 fare now that it's on steel springs and passive dampers? Honestly, not too bad at all. Ride quality overall is really rather good, because you got to remember that while it is riding on 18-inch wheels, which is about the class standard, it also has massive 55 profile tires, which are really quite tall, and that does a great job of absorbing bumps. On the whole, yes, it is a little bit soft, and you'll feel that float at high speeds that you would expect of a big limousine-like car. But it's surprisingly well held together in the corners. That said, make no mistake, this is no great handling car, and I think a BMW 5 Series would easily best it in that regard. But then handling was never really the Audi A6's thing, right? So I think that's understandable that the new car doesn't really push the limits in that area. It's come to India a tad later than expected, and some rivals may have had a little bit more time in the sun as a result. But the new A6 has come well prepared. It carries forward the strengths of its predecessors and the values people appreciate from Audi, all updated to meet the needs of today's mid-sized luxury sedan buyers. The new A6 doesn't take any major risks like some rivals did in this segment, but in this case, that might just be a good thing. This is a car they just have to get right, so sticking with the tried and tested formula might just be the better course of action. Though the launch is a little while away from the time we've done this review, we hear they're aiming for a very competitive price tag for this well-spec'd car, perhaps close to the 58 lakh rupee mark. So, a late entrant it may be, but the A6 may just be able to make up the lost ground quicker than you think.